One of the best features of the Entertech and KMS integration is the ability to now remotely look at the use of the door entry system. So to give you an idea, there's two ways of looking at this. We can look at the security of the building, and then we can look at providing a more proactive approach to helping people living in a building. For something like antisocial behaviour, we can look at the system for the fob access, as we've always been able to do, and see if there's any excessive use of the fobs. And that might be an indication of some antisocial behaviour going on. We can now look at the use of the door entry system as well. So remotely we can access, is a flat being called? Has the door been answered? And has the door been released? So what that means is if you've got, again, a problem with antisocial behaviour, it could be that somebody is letting somebody into the block of flats at 3 o'clock in the morning, but we don't know who it is, and that's where the issue occurs. So now when we look at it, we can look at the fob usage, but now we can have a look at the actual use of the door entry system. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, we can see that somebody's come up to the panel. The usual thing is they'll just keep pressing all the buttons until somebody answers. But we can now see that the person in flat number 15 has answered the call. We can see that they've actually released the door and let the person in. Now at that point, the person that caused the antisocial behaviour knows that if they call flat 15, there's a good chance they'll get in. So they'll repeat that night after night. In the past, it was very hard to determine who was letting them in. But now with the new system, we can see straight away, flat 15's been called, the door's been released, and there's where the issue is. It might just be a case of the housing manager going along and saying, do you realise you've got a privacy button on your unit? You just press that, you don't get any calls during the night, and that might eliminate the intrusion into the building. The other side of it is where you've got somebody that's in the building who might be vulnerable. So we've got a lady, Mavis, we'll call her, living in flat number 20. Now, Mavis, we're a little bit concerned because she lives on her own and she's quite old and she has some disabilities as well. So we can actually look at the fob, as we've always been able to do, and see that Mavis uses her fob on a regular basis. So we know she's leaving the building and we know she's coming back in because we can see the fob. But at the point that we see Mavis isn't using a fob, and we can do an automatic report that arrives on somebody's desk on a Monday morning to say that Mavis hasn't used her fob, alarm bells might start ringing. So what we're now going to do is look at the actual door entry system for Mavis's flat at number 20. So when we look at the history there, similar to the way we look at the fob history, we can see that Mavis has been getting some calls through to her flat. She has answered the call and she's let people in. So we're not too concerned about that. It could be that she's a little bit unwell and she's got family and friends visiting. But at the point that we can actually check the system and see that Mavis isn't using a fob, we're looking at the door entry system, we can see that the calls are being made on the system, but they're not being answered. That's when the alarm bell should start ringing. And at that point, there should be some sort of welfare intervention to make sure Mavis is okay. So I like the idea that we're now using a door entry system to be more proactive and looking after the well-being of people that are actually living in the blocks of flats that we're managing.